Welcome to Out of the Closet Into the World, a podcast dedicated to celebrating authenticity, embracing our true self, and creating a world where love and inclusivity truly shines. I'm your host, Ada Arancibia, and each month we bring you powerful stories, inspiring interviews, and real conversations that lift up the LGBTQ plus community and their allies. Wherever you are on your own journey of self discovery, standing up for equality, or simply looking to learn and grow, this space is for you. Together, we'll break down barriers, challenge misconceptions, and share the strength in our stories. So, wherever you are, whatever your truth may be, step into the world with us. Let's embrace who we are and make a difference, one voice at a time. Imagine the moment your child shares a part of themselves that truly changes your world forever. Now, imagine choosing love, learning, and advocacy over fear and uncertainty. In today's episode, we're sitting down with Maria Bell, a mother, ally, and a passionate advocate who shares her powerful journey of embracing her son's truth, breaking through misconceptions about the LGBTQ plus community, and transforming her heart and mind along the way. This isn't just a story about parenthood or advocacy. It's a story about the power of unconditional love, understanding, and standing up for what's right. If you have ever wondered how to navigate allyship, overcome fears, or create a path of acceptance, this episode is for you. Welcome to Out of the Closet Into the World, the podcast where we'll break down walls, lift up voices, and celebrate the strength of being your true self. I'm your host, Ada Arancibia. We will hear inspiring stories of people who have faced challenges and embrace who they really are. Join me on this journey of honesty, empowerment, and change. Together, let's step out of the closet and into the world. Let's dive in. Hey, Maria, thank you for this amazing opportunity. It is such an honor to have you on the show today. How are you doing today?
I am wonderful. How are you?
I am fantastic. I am so excited to sit down here with you and just to sit back and hear your story, your journey, and how amazing, you have been just winning all these different crowns. Could you start by sharing a little bit about your upbringing and how your experiences as a child shape your perspective on family and community?
Oh my gosh, I've never been asked that before. And thank you. Thank you for asking that. I am the youngest of five and I was a military brat. But when I was five, my father died. I don't have any memories of him. I can look at photos, but I don't have any memories of his voice or his mannerisms. And I think a lot of it, obviously, is we don't get memories until we're about that age. But him being in the military, I think he was gone a lot. And so I was raised by a single mom. And my mom was born and raised in Southwest Texas. And she had a very interesting outlook on life. She had been adopted and she had really struggled in a small town in Texas to try to fit in. And she taught me that you don't necessarily want to fit in and standing out is okay. And I kind of struggled with that as a teenager because I think a lot of teenagers do want to fit in, right? They don't want to necessarily
Right.
stand out. But I think standing out has helped me, especially in my pageant career, because in pageantry, we don't want to like blend in with the crowd. We want to stand out. So the
Right, right.
notice us and say, okay, there's something different about that person that I think would make a good title holder. So my mom taught me how to be an outspoken woman because we didn't have a man in the house. It was up to her to take care of me. And she moved me a lot. She struggled, now that I look back on it, I think with mental illness. But I always knew she loved me. She kept a clean home. She kept me well fed. But I moved 18 times by the time I went to college. So I was
Oh, wow.
always the new kid. And when you're the new kid, to survive, you're going to have to put yourself out there. And when I put myself out there, the last high school that I went to, I went right in with the risk takers because they were the ones that would take me in. They weren't so clicky. And I was probably a risk taker. I probably did a lot of things I shouldn't have done, but it was a long time ago and things were different back then. But I loved my teen years. And then I got married young and we had 3 sons. And I've tried to raise my sons. I think I've sent this message to them that they need to be true to themselves, that they need to not be at the end of their life and say, I wish that I had lived my life authentically. So
Mm.
hopefully I've been able to pass that on to my kids.
Wow, that's such a powerful journey right there. Now, it's interesting how movement and change during childhood can build adaptability. How would you say your sense of identity developed as a result?
Again, I think just being unique. I was never one to fit in because it was almost impossible to fit in when you're the new person. And it really did help. I have a fun story. Let me tell my story that I think will help answer this. My high school had a 20th anniversary, right? High school reunion, 20th high school.
Hmm.
And I don't think a lot of people knew me in high school because I was the new kid. I came in the middle of high school and we had a big class. I think we had like 600 kids in our graduating class. So I go to the 20th high school reunion. And at this point, I have won a lot of great titles. I've won Mrs. Virginia America. I've been to Mrs. America. I didn't know that my classmates were viewing me in a certain light because we had social media so they could see what I had done. And I go to this 20th high school reunion and they decided to crown me reunion queen. And I think some of the people were like, who? They were clapping for me, but I think they were like, who is that? I don't remember her from high school.
Yeah, yeah.
At that point, I realized that it was good for me to be unique and for me to bring a different perspective and for me not to have blended in. Because a lot of people I went to school with, they grew up from kindergarten together, or maybe they had a lot of cousins. You know, they were all very cliquey. So I think that it's been a good thing. And I wasn't always happy as a teenager being moved around a lot. But now I look back on it and I'm like, well, that's who made me who I am today. And I like who I am today.
I love that response. Now, I know that you have had a successful career in fitness and wellness. What sparked your initial interest in health and how did that passion evolve over time?
My mother in law got me into fitness, and I've known my mother in law since I was 19. And when I had my second baby, Tyler, I wanted to stay home. It just was so difficult to work full time with 2 kids, and Mike was working full time, plus, he was working side jobs. He's an IT developer, and I really wanted to stay home, but we didn't have the money. And my mother in law said, you know, you should look into being, at that time, we would have called it an aerobics instructor. Today, we call it a Group X instructor. And she encouraged me to get into health and wellness. And I started teaching classes, and people were looking up to me for advice on how to get stronger and healthier. And I thought, you know, if they're asking me these questions and they look up to me as the role model, I should probably go ahead and get some education so that I can answer them with, you know, some really good educated answers. And so I went and got my degree in community wellness at Virginia Commonwealth University and became an American College of Sports Medicine exercise physiologist. So that when they came to me and asked me questions, I wanted to put them on the right track and I wanted them to know that they could trust me.
That's a very profound answer right there. Now, it's so powerful when a passion evolves into purpose, right? How did you connect your personal fitness journey to community and wellness advocacy?
It was a few years ago, 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder called Hashimoto's. And it happens to women sometimes when they go through menopause. But looking back on my younger life, I had symptoms that doctors never connected the dots with in testing for my thyroid function. And that gave me even more purpose to recognize that lifestyle is so important and how my energy is, how I feel every day, how I can give back to the community if I feel good because I'm fit and active and moving my body. So just having lots of education, knowing what exercise does for your body. Fun fact, regular exercise can prevent up to 95% of all chronic disease. So
Mm.
every single day, I get out of the bed and I say, what can I do today to make my life better? And a lot of times that's me moving. A lot of times it's me going out and walking 5 miles or going to the gym and lifting weights so I have denser bones and better muscle mass. And so that connection, then I'm like, well, I want to tell everybody about this. And that just led me into the community of wanting to bring everybody onto my journey of being healthy and fit because as Americans, we're not very healthy.
That's very true. And you do have a valid point there. It sounds like your career has given you a unique perspective on self care. How does that perspective intersect with allyship and inclusivity?
Well, when our son was, I think he was about 17 or 18, our oldest son, he came out to us. And somebody said something to me and said, the only reason why your son came out was because you and Mike are so open. And it wasn't really a compliment when they said that. It was a statement like we were encouraging him,
Mm,
which I found that very interesting that they said that because that obviously that's not the case. If you're going to come out, it's not that somebody has encouraged you to do that. It's you finding your true self, right? But maybe
right.
you're in a safe space and you're like, okay, I can trust this person. I think with my upbringing, even though I had a lot of misconceptions from my mom about mom's roles in gay men's upbringing, which we can talk about that later, I do think that my mom brought a unique perspective to me to be open minded. And I think she tried to be as open minded as she could. But I do think it was a generational thing. She was born in the 30s. But my mother had been surrounded by different cultures her whole life. She felt like an outsider her whole life. So when our son came out to us, I went through some struggles. I'm not going to lie. Because as parents, no one gives you any instructions on how you're supposed to feel when your child comes out.
Exactly.
And so I took it on and I internalized it because we had him young. And I thought, did I fail him? Did I do something wrong? Because I had been taught that it was always the mother's fault for a son to come out. And my son was so reassuring. And he said, Mom, he's like, I've known since, I can't remember what age he said, but he'd known for a long time. And I conversed with friends of mine who were gay. And a friend of mine said, Maria, think of it this way. When you're attracted to someone, and she was referring to me as a heterosexual. And I said, yeah. And she goes, that feeling that you have, you're attracted to somebody. She's like, your son has those same feelings. It just happens to be for someone of the same sex. As a mom, once my son came out and I gathered more information from a heterosexual viewpoint, that I then became an ally because I was raised with all these misconceptions from my mom that I had to break down in my mind that weren't necessarily true. And then once I was able to do that, I hope that I was able to become an ally and an advocate. And, I've gone on marches with my son. We go to drag shows together. His partner is probably one of my favorite people in the world. And it is important to me that my son is happy. I want him to be
That's
in a
right.
healthy relationship. I want him to be living his fullest life. And my son is fine. Let me tell you, my son is fine. It was me who had to overcome things. And I was never, ever a parent that was scared of what other people thought. And I think that came from
Mm,
my background. I didn't really care what people thought.
That's such an honest reflection right there. How would you advise parents who may be in the same moment now? Like, experiencing those misconceptions. Because I know you mentioned, what did I do wrong? Right? What advice would you give to those parents?
Well, I think things have changed a lot. Society's not perfect. It's not perfect by any means, but man, I'm going to be 60 next year. So I've seen a lot of change. And parents have come to me when they find out that I have a gay son, and I think I'm pretty open about it. On social media, you can see that I fight for equality, and I will strike someone down if I think there's nonsense coming out of them. So people have been encouraged to reach out to me and say, "My child has come out. What advice do you have to give?" I will say the parents who are ashamed or afraid, they're usually, I'm just going to say it, hope no one comes after me, they're usually indoctrinated in their religion. And
Mm,
their religion is telling them to turn their backs on their child. And I say, honey, if your religion's telling you that you should turn your back on your child, you are in the wrong religion, because
that's
God does
right.
not want that. God does not want that. So I have talked to people about that before. But now it just feels so different. I don't have as many people coming to me anymore. And I think because there's more support, we're talking about it more on social media. And if my son coming out as gay is the worst thing to happen to me, I got a good life.
Now, you mentioned having some misconceptions about the LGBT plus community before you began your journey. What were those initial misconceptions, and how did learning reshape your perspective?
I don't think it was really misconceptions about the LGBTQ community. I didn't really have any misconceptions about that. It was misconceptions on what I may have done as a mom that would have made my son gay, according to my mother. And she was like, well, gay men come from bad moms. She raised me with that, way before my son came out. So I was taught that that was the case. And so when my son came out, I felt sad. I felt ashamed for something I had done. And then my son is amazing. And he was like, Mom, that's not the way it is. And fun fact, my son literally lives 150 yards behind us. He and his partner bought a duplex behind us. So we see them like once or twice a week. We have dinner together, we hang out together. And yeah, so I think those were the misconceptions more than anything.
It's so human, right? To learn and grow through experiences. Which part of that journey was the most eye-opening for you?
So soon after my son came out, I was out with some friends. So I'm in the fitness industry, and some of the male instructors in the fitness industry are gay. And I was out with a good friend of mine, and he was. We were out like at a happy hour, and he was out with his boyfriend. And I approached him and I said, "My son's come out," and he just encouraged me to be an advocate and to be supportive of my son, because his parents are very supportive of him, and I see how close he is with his family. And my family, I will tell you, Ada, I will shank somebody from my family. Like, my family is so important to me. Our three sons, our daughters-in-law, my son's partner, our grandkids. It is all about the family. And my daughters-in-law and my son's partners have said that one of the reasons why they got with our sons was because they saw how strong our family was. And
Mm.
nothing is getting between me and my children. Nothing. Society can go kick rocks. I don't care what society thinks. But I will tell you, I only surround myself with people who are loving and open-minded. I don't have time for narrow-minded people. And so they don't come around.
That's amazing. Now, take us back, right? Because I know you have spoken in regards to your son being an LGBTQ member. Take us back to that moment. Like, how did he came out to you? Take
This,
us back to that time.
this is a great story. I think you're going to like it. My husband and I woke up, I think it was like on a Saturday morning, and I went into my son's room. My son was on a field trip with his show choir, and he left a letter, and it said, Mom and Dad. And I brought it back to the bed where my husband and I were waking up. I said, Hey, babe, Brandon left a letter for us. And we opened it up and it said, Dear Mom and Dad, I think I might be bisexual. And my husband and I looked at each other and we said, Bisexual? I don't think so. I think he's gay. So he was trying to ease us into it, right? And we didn't
Right.
ease into it. So I can't remember if he had a cell phone at that time where we would have called him, but it was not a shock. It was not a shock to us, when he left us the letter. And I don't think I kept that letter, but I really wish I had kept it. It definitely was something that we had to work through, but it was not devastation by any means to our family. It was like,
Mm.
okay, what's next? What do we do now?
So, in other words, you and your husband already knew that he was going to be that way since he was little. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that, but he says he didn't really know until he was like in middle school. But
Mm.
I think Brandon was such an easy child. He was the oldest. He was always the one that the teachers called about because he was so wonderful. And he made straight A's and he was driven, and I never had any problems with Brandon. And then his two brothers came along who, whew, let me tell you, they tried to kill me. They were hard to raise. And so I think we looked at Brandon and we were just like, he's sensitive, he's kind, he's, you know, just an amazing individual. And I think that we just kind of knew. We just kind of knew.
Mm. That's amazing.
You would love
Now, what
would love him, by the way.
Oh, I can't wait to meet him.
Yeah.
Now, what role did friendships within the LGBTQ plus community play in helping you understand your son's journey and your own role as an ally?
Well, I think just being around people who are like minded, who are open minded, we're not all the same. And I don't want to be around people who are all the same. I don't
Mm,
want to, look at everyone and see people who look like me all the time or who love like me all the time. I want to be around diversity. And we are in a very diverse town. We live in the city. We are urban. We live in a diverse state. And when I start to go outside and I see that other communities are not like my community, I can't wait to come back because I don't feel safe. Even though you would look at me and you would think, well, she should feel safe. She's, white, blonde, older, whatever. No, I want to be around people who we just have interesting things to talk about. And so my friends that are in the LGBTQ community, we talk a lot about how to make our communities better, how to be more accepting and loving. And that's the kind of conversations I want to have. So I love my community. You need to come visit me.
I love that. Maria, you're in Virginia, correct?
I am. I'm in Richmond.
In Richmond, Virginia. Now, those connections are so vital. How has leading into those relationships helped you educate others about allyship? So you mentioned that it's so important to bring awareness and to make sure you have that voice. But how have you been able to educate others about allyship?
Well, I don't know if it's been like an open conversation because, again, most of the people in my life, I have a lot of friends who have gay kids. And I think we tend to gravitate towards each other because for whatever reason, we have something in common, right? That's the thing that,
Mhm.
that we might have in common. And so I don't know if it's always an open conversation about allyship and being an advocate, but I bring people together. And so if you're coming to my house for a cocktail party or a dinner party or a birthday party, you're going to be in a mix of a lot of different people. And so then people get to know each other, right? They get to ask each other questions, and they just see that we really are all alike in the fact that we want to be accepted and loved. And at the end of the day, that's what I want to be, don't you? Accepted and loved. So that's how I bring people together. Again, it's not really so much of a battle on social media as it used to be, but I think a lot of my followers, they know how I feel, so they don't necessarily come after me like they used to, because I will put them into the ground if I have to.
Absolutely. Now, as a mother, what were some internal challenges you faced when your son came out? And how did you work through them? So, for example, take us back when you were thinking, did we did something wrong? Or did those thoughts ever came to mind?
I have a really cute story. So, absolutely. There's a distinct memory I have, and it was probably a year after Brandon came out, and he got accepted into the engineering school at Virginia Tech. And he became pretty active in the LGBTQ community at Virginia Tech. And I will never forget this moment. I was getting my hair dyed, I was getting it colored. And I'd never gone to the stylist before. She was referred to me. And she's doing my hair, and she starts talking about gay men come from bad mothers. So here I hear this message again from somebody who sounds like my mom, right?
Yes.
She starts going through, she's like, oh, I've worked with gay men. They all come from bad moms. They didn't have the right upbringing. And she's telling me this. And now my son has come out, and I've had some internalized feelings. And as she's doing my hair, she can't see I'm crying. I'm falling apart because I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just this person's validating all these things that were told to me as I was growing up. So she finishes my hair, again, not noticing these emotions I'm going through. I get in the car. I call my son, who's at Virginia Tech. I said, Brandon, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I tried to be a good mom to you. I hope I didn't fail you. And he goes, Mom, I can't talk right now because we're doing a demonstration at Virginia Tech for LGBTQ rights, and a newspaper is interviewing me. Can I call you back? And I hung up, like, that is my son. That is my child.
He's like, "Look, I'm busy right now."
I'm busy right now. I've got things to do. I will call you back. We'll discuss this. But it wasn't even anything that he had thought about. So then I just let it go. I was like, okay, obviously it's not impacting my child. So
Mm.
it was it was a turning point. It was definitely a turning point.
Now, what misconceptions do you believe some parents most often have when it comes to supporting their own LGBTQ child? And how could those misunderstandings be addressed?
That's a great question. I don't know if I really have an answer to that per se, because like I said, a lot of my friends, we have adult gay children, and we're all very active in our families. But I
Well, we're talking about, those individuals that are not our friends, right? Let's think about the bigger picture, those parents who are kicking their children out, right? I know you mentioned that it has to do a
I don't
lot with
know those
it
people.
has a lot to do with religion.
Right,
Um,
right. I don't
mhm.
know any of those people. I'm going to be honest. I hear about those people. I don't personally know any of those people. But if I found out, and I've had holiday dinners where I have told my son, when he was at Tech, I said, if you have any friends, they don't have any place to go, you are bringing them home. And he has brought them home. But I don't know anybody directly. I know there are misconceptions out there about the um, maybe the trans community or LGBTQ community that we recently heard on national TV that
Hmm.
your child may go to school and then come home, you know, they were male, now they're female or whatever. And that's just bananas. That's bananas, and that's just fodder to try to get people against each other on a social issue that doesn't really exist. And so if those discussions come up, I squash those discussions very, very quickly.
I know that misconceptions, right, can create some barriers. What advice then would you give to parents who might be struggling with acceptance?
Again, that's your child. Do you want to be on your deathbed and say, I should have nurtured that relationship with my child? No. You want to have a loving relationship. You want to be part of your child's life. And hopefully, if they find a partner, maybe they decide to have kids, don't you want to be part of all of that? For me, it's just a non-event. It's just not something I ever even think about. So that would be my main message to parents of work on yourself, and ask yourself why you're having these thoughts. Why do you think that um, being heterosexual is the only way to live? It's not. You know,
Mm,
just we need to have more conversation that sexuality is very complex. It's very complex.
that's
And
such a beautiful message right there.
it is.
Now, let's go back to, the glitz and glamour of Maria Bell. Tell us, I don't want you to tell us how many titles you have because I'm pretty sure there are a lot, but tell us your most current titles that you currently have.
Sure. So let me go back just a couple of years. My husband and I bought a property down in Naples, Florida. His family's down there. And when we go down there for a few months out of every year. And when I was down there, I thought, I'd really like to connect with the pageant community down here. And I found Susie Hosfeld with Universal Global, and she encouraged me to enter into her Central Florida preliminary for Universal Global. And I drove to Orlando from Naples, and I did her pageant, and they crowned me Central Florida. And then she said, well, now you get to come to Mrs. Florida. So then I went to Mrs. Florida and I won Mrs. Florida. And then she said, and now you get to go to Mrs. Universal Global and compete for the national title, which I did. And I won. And I won the International Supermodel Award as well. And then that qualified me to compete for the Mrs. Universal Global International title, of which I won this past July, and you were my judge. And I also won the International Supermodel Award again there. And what that is just the high score with all the optionals. So
Mm.
that's my latest title with Universal Global. But then Susie created a new pageant, and it's called the Legends International Pageant. And
Ooh, the Legends division.
with the division I am in is elite. So I got out of the Mrs., although I love the Mrs. title because I've been married so long. I did go into the elite title, and that's for women over 50. And I hold the USA title. So I will compete against other countries in July. And it's a beautiful crown. You probably can't see the whole thing, but it's just, I love blue. Blue's one of my favorite.
That's beautiful.
Oh yeah, Susie does it right. She does it right, and so here I am going for my fifth title with her. She's stuck with me.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So, what advice would you give? You have been in the game for quite a bit and you have been a coach, correct?
Mhm. Yes.
You're a pageant coach. What advice would you give a new pageant contestants on, preparation? How do you prepare for a pageant?
Good question. It goes back to what I said earlier. When I am in preparation mode, which will be months out, every day I wake up and I say, what can I do today to improve? What can I do today to improve? And what that does is it gets me ready for competition, right?
Mm,
So maybe it's a hour long walk. Maybe it's something to do with my community. Maybe it's posting something. So I put my head in the game months in advance. The biggest piece of advice I could give someone is learn about the pageant system. Learn what they're looking for. Because if you're all about community service and this pageant over here that you just entered is about modeling and you don't know how to model, you're going to struggle. So find out what your strengths are and then sign up for that pageant if you want to win. So like for Susie's pageants, she loves people who can work the stage. She loves that. She does appreciate community service as well, but you don't have to go into the interview and try to prove community service to the judges like you do with some pageants. So it's really knowing your system and then working towards it.
That's fascinating that you can program and pretty much put yourself in that mindset in pageant mode and pretty much do a reset, right? When you start like an activity or a task or you program yourself to do those, it's kind of like when you do it repetitive, it becomes natural.
Mhm.
So when you're doing things over and over and over again, you become a champion. Would you say that that's what got you to win so many pageants?
Absolutely. Just lots of research. I started in pageantry in 1999. I saw Mrs. America on TV. It was when it was on national TV. And I had no idea that anything like that existed. And I turned to my husband and I said, I want to enter Mrs. Virginia. He said, well, go for it. And I didn't have a coach. Back then, you didn't really have coaches. I did as much research as I could on the internet. And I went in and I won everything. I won the evening gown, the interview, fitness, the onstage question, and I found myself at Mrs. America. Mrs. America was my second pageant, and I was a little bit of a hot mess. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I had an amazing time because it was an all paid, expenses paid trip to Hawaii for 10 days. And they took you everywhere in Hawaii and they filmed you because it was going to be on national TV. They fed you every day, they provided wardrobe, and I was standing on that stage at Mrs. America outside on a lagoon and I said, this pageant stuff is amazing. I want to keep doing it. And I just kept doing it. And every time I did it, I got a little bit better. I got a little bit better. I learned from my failures, is what happened. And I'm still learning. I'm still learning. I still make mistakes and go, okay, I could have done that a little bit better. And that's what I like about pageantry. You're constantly improving.
Mm. And it's so important to have that growth mindset and not fixed mindset, right? So I know you mentioned, you have made mistakes and that you were a hot mess, as you said, at that pageant. But can you tell us and elaborate on why you felt like you were, not good enough or that you were a hot mess at the pageant? And what did you learn from those mistakes?
Ooh, I love that question. I learned that wardrobe is super important. So at Mrs. America, I had a gown made. I would never, ever have a gown made again because pageant designers, when you can find a gown off the rack, that a pageant designer has created, they know how to pick up the lighting and how to fit your body. I would never get
Mm.
a custom gown unless I got a custom gown by a pageant designer. So that was my first fail. And then really, it was just I didn't have the experience. It was my second pageant. And I, was probably a little rusty in modeling because I didn't really. And today we model a lot different than we did in 1999. Today the modeling is so fun. We go out and I'm doing all sorts of stuff on stage that I never would have done in 1999. And I'm here for it. I love the way the evolution has happened with the pageant industry. Um, and then just the hair and makeup. I would have hired somebody. I didn't necessarily know to do that. But when I didn't make top 10 at Mrs. America, all the contestants around me were devastated they didn't make top 10. I went backstage and someone looked at me and they said, why aren't you crying? You didn't make top 10. I said, honey, I'm Mrs. Virginia, 1999 until forever. I'm going home as Mrs. Virginia. And I went home and I made like 50 more appearances. I was just so thrilled to be there because I think mindset's everything. But yeah,
Mm.
I made some mistakes and like I said, I still make them, but I try to correct.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, Maria, tell us about overcoming your fears when it comes to getting on stage? Do you still get nervous? What category still gives you the jitteries and gets you that feeling of, oh my God, I hope that I do good?
I love being on stage. So, no, I'm excited to be on stage, but I'm a fitness instructor. So I'm on a stage almost every single day of my life. But the difference is I have a microphone attached to my head and I'm in fitness apparel. So getting on a stage for me, and you judged me. The mistake I made at the pageant that you judged me at a few times was Susie was playing such pumping music. And as a fitness instructor, I went out like trying to keep the beat to the music. I was like, man, this music's good. And then my husband's like, Maria, you're going a little too fast. You need to slow that down. And then you and I were talking after the pageant. You're like, yeah, you could have slowed that down a little bit. But I self-corrected in the middle of the pageant. But I would say there is one area of competition. Susie doesn't do it, but I get a little nervous with onstage question because I've learned the hard way that onstage questions, they can run the gamut. You can
Hmm.
one person can get a softball question, like, I don't know, what does winning this title mean to you? And then one person can be, one year I got, what would you do to encourage more female lawmakers to pass laws to help women? And you would think I'd be able to nail that, but I froze. I was like, this question's kind of hard.
Yeah, the hardest questions is the two-part question, and one of the mistakes that a lot of contestants make is that they're not listening to the first part of the question when it's a two-part question, and they only answer the question with the second part, or they just go on a different path and completely answer the question, a complete question, basically.
Yep. Yep. And that happened at Mrs. America when I won. I mean, Mrs. Virginia when I won. It was a two-part question, and I answered both parts. I said, I'm going to answer the first part, and then I'm going to answer the second part. And the judges really appreciated that. But you're right. Listening is important.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, in your own opinion, right, what is the most important thing that you can do as a title holder, to bring more contestants to the organization or, to be able to network that title?
Well, I hate to say it because I don't really like this answer, and I try to discourage contestants from saying it, but I'm going to say it. Social media is huge. And the reason why I don't
Mhm.
like to say it is because I feel like social media doesn't really mean that you're doing what you may look like you're doing. But when people start to see that you are out and about and they see a lot of photos and they see that you're having fun, they see pageant week, they see all these things, and I post a lot, because you're my friend, I post a lot. But when they see that you're doing all these modeling competitions and you're part of the fashion shows at Universal Global, people want to be a part of that. So this past pageant, I had 4 contestants that were my girls that came and competed. And, that's 4 people that are coming from Virginia. They're coming all the way down to Florida to compete. And when you're in the industry for a while, people look to you and say, okay, if she's been with that pageant system for a while, I think I'm going to trust what she has to say about it. And a lot of people have reached out to me and asked me about Universal Global. And I've been in some bad pageants. There was one I did a few years ago. It was terrible. It was terrible.
Mm.
People have reached out to me and said, should I do that pageant?" I will say, no, don't do it. Don't waste your money. Don't do it. But you should do this pageant because it's going to be fair and you're going to get feedback and you're going to have a great time. So it is important for contestants to bring in other contestants, queens to bring in contestants. I'm a pageant director myself. I love when my queens refer my system. It means I have a good product. So it is important, and that should be a question that every judge asks the contestant in the interview. How are you going to help this system grow?
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, can you tell us the name of your pageant?
Yeah, it's America's Fit Miss. And this is our crown. And I created this system years ago, 20 years ago.
Wow.
I saw contestants doing crazy things to lose weight, to get swimsuit ready. I actually worked with a contestant who had osteoporosis. That means she had bone loss because of her crazy diets that she was on to get swimsuit ready. And this girl was in her 20s, woman was in her 20s.
Mm,
And I decided that I wanted to create a national title that highlights women being active, getting strong, feeling empowered by their good health. And I wanted to then recognize these women in what they're doing with their communities, whether it's encouraging their neighbor to walk with them most days of the week, or maybe they're taking their teenage daughter with them to the gym to teach them how to weight train, or maybe they're a fitness professional. I wanted to have a system that just shows something completely different. That's not bodybuilding. We are not a bodybuilding pageant. We are not a bikini pageant, because I got a whole lot of opinions about those pageants too. But I do. Being in the fitness industry and being an exercise physiologist, a lot of those bikini competitions, the bodybuilding competitions, to me, they're just glorified dieting. They're glorified
mm,
dieting. Those people are getting down to eating 10 foods, every day and cutting their calories. I didn't want that.
mm.
I want my judges to be inspired by stories, maybe people getting healthy again. And I'm telling you, I've had some amazing winners. But that's this crown, America's Fitness, and you can go to the website and check it all out. My husband's my webmaster, americasfitness.com.
Now, with Miss Global organization, right? Because I'm going to start being the head judge of the pageant. I created a specific group that's called Winner Circle. In your opinion, right? Because I know you have shared a little bit with me, and you mentioned that no other pageant has done such thing where we installed and we provide you with different ideas and different tools to network and learn how to take your brand, as a winner to the next level. What have you learned, from being part of the winner circle?
I've learned a lot, and thank you for creating that, because I thought that I knew a lot about social media. I was a social media director for a fitness company I work for. I love social media. I love it. I learned a lot because you taught us how to map and schedule our posts. And then you taught us how to be consistent with our themes. And I've taken a break from that because I do think you need a break, so that
Absolutely.
your followers don't get numb or bored. But you taught us how to do like motivational Mondays and wellness Wednesdays, and it taught me how to be creative. And not only taught me how to be creative, you taught me how to share more about myself, where I don't know if I necessarily would have shared those things. And I was like, there's actually a lot of aspects about me. And I liked it. I got a lot of feedback from people. And I was a Facebook creator when I met you, but because of your encouragement to be really active with the app, I got monetized with Facebook.
Mm.
And I'm not making a ton of money, but I wasn't making anything before. And so thank you for that.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, that's wonderful to hear. That's so amazing because when you truly humble yourself, and I know sometimes there are stories or there are things that we go through that we don't really feel proud of, but we're human. And when you put yourself out there, when you are someone who's a pageant winner or someone in the public eye, and you have a strong message and you humanize your post, or you show that sensitive side of yourself, you become more authentic, right? And you have a stronger connection with your audience, and people start to really connect with you. And it's so fascinating, and it's something that I'm still learning myself on utilizing hashtags, learning about the SEO, the search engine optimization, and all those social media aspect, and the whole social media world that a lot of people don't know about.
Yeah.
So absolutely. And I'm so glad to hear that you're getting monetized now.
Yeah. You know what you also encouraged me was because of those hashtags when we were in your challenges, and you were like, use these certain hashtags, which are so important because it's like putting a little antenna on your post. I then realized how important it was for my contestants to hashtag America's Fit Miss. And so I give away an America's Fit social media influencer title. They actually get this crown and they get a banner, America's Fit social media influencer. And that's one of the requirements now because of you. They have to hashtag
Mm.
that America's Fit Miss, because we're trying to drive up that hashtag. So it is important.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, I know that you were the first winner of the Winner Circle contest when we were having the contest. Tell us a little bit more about what that took in place and tell us a little bit more about your experience.
Yeah, so that winner circle that you had created, I have my laptop right here. I won that laptop because you created this amazing contest, this challenge, and you wanted us to use the right hashtags. Hashtag Mrs. Global, Mrs. Universal, Global International was my personal hashtag, and then all the hashtags to drive traffic over there. But we had themes that we had to do, and like I said, like it would be motivational Mondays, wellness Wednesdays. I don't know if we did Flashback Friday, but you had some really good ones, and they weren't always about me or the person posting. You also encouraged us to focus on other people in our posts as well, which that's actually my strength. I actually like that. I like focusing
Absolutely.
on other people and hearing their successes. But did that last a month? I think it was a month, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So I at first when you posted it, you were like, "Let's all do this challenge." At first, I felt overwhelmed, and I was like, "I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can do this." And then I said to my husband, "You know what? I'm going to try to do this because this is going to be free education for me. I'm going to learn something, even if I don't win the laptop." And I think I already told you this. I said it to Mike too. Even if I don't win that laptop, I will have won because I will have learned some things at the end of this.
Absolutely, absolutely. And once again, congratulations on winning your laptop. I hope you're utilizing it wisely and it's helping you, continue to plan your content because when you do plan your content, you'll be able to be more productive and be able to think ahead. When is your charity or your cause, initiated? Can I build a post around that? Holiday season, you start planning your holiday season post now
Did one.
take go
The one that I just did with the we had the grand illumination down here in Richmond, and it's our tradition to take our grandkids. And you said, Maria, you should do a tradition, and I think I tagged you in that. But yeah,
yeah,
I like that. I like it.
yes. Now, how did your time competing in pageants and being a public figure shape your views on empowerment and inclusivity?
Thinking more about community and community service, that was something I didn't necessarily do prior to pageants. I did some community work, but then I realized through pageantry, especially when you have a title, that can open a lot of doors for you, and people invite you to come in and be part of their projects as well. And then once again you have this title and people see you promoting, um, let's say we had our Pride Fest here in Richmond, and I try to go to that every single year. I take my crown and my banner, I go with my son and his partner, and that puts a new light on something like that people may not know about. And so then I think people also will see me promoting things and go, that must be really important to her. So let me get involved as well. And I love it when friends come and join me on my appearances. And that's been, I think, the best thing about pageantry is the doors that it's opened.
Mm. Now, you said no crown or title is worth dimming your light.
Mhm.
Can you unpack what that means for you as a mother, advocate, and a public figure?
And I'm going to go back a few years. There was a women's march that I decided to do back in 2016. Well, it was actually 2017, the beginning of 2017 in Washington, D.C. And I participated in the Women's March, and there was about 1 million of us. And I went with my son and his friends, and my niece, and my sister was there. And I posted all about it. And I posted why I was going to march and what was so important to me and what I was afraid of that I didn't want to happen as a society. And I got so much heat. I got so much
Mm.
heat on social media. I mean, probably 500 comments under that post. And I think I got blackballed in a few systems because I think directors looked at me and decided I wasn't conservative enough for them or Christian enough for them. I don't know, because pageantry has a conundrum, in my opinion. Pageantry can be all about the conservative Christian woman wearing the crown and banner. I see that a lot, especially in the Bible Belt, right? But shouldn't pageantry be about female empowerment and us talking about things that are very important to women? And we should find our voice, whether everybody agrees with it or not. So I decided then, you know what? No pageant title is worth me talking about injustices and equality and human rights. And if the system doesn't want me, don't take my money. Don't take my money and tell me it's okay to compete. I'm going to find a system who appreciates me. And that's why I'm with Susie, because she appreciates me.
That's such a powerful statement right there. Integrity is a choice, right? Especially in the face of opposition. How do you remind yourself every day of your purpose during difficult times?
Well, I don't know if I think about it every day, but I think it is important for us to speak up, especially now. We have to speak up. There are things that have been rolled back. Women's rights have been rolled back. What's next? Affirmative action has been rolled back. What's next? There is a person being considered that will be over the US military who doesn't think that the LGBTQ community should be in the services. We got to
Mm.
speak up. We have to speak up. We can't be quiet. Why are we being quiet about that? I saw somebody post recently who's a pageant girl, and she said, "How dare all these pageant girls talk about politics? Their directors must be so ashamed of them." Again, if my director's ashamed of me for speaking about human rights and equality, I don't want to be part of their system.
Right.
I don't want to be anywhere near it. We have to speak up because we as the people, it's impacting us. And if we don't say anything, then the higher powers are just going to get away with it. So to me, that's important. I choose my battles wisely. I choose them wisely. I decide, okay, this is enough. This is important to me to post about. And then some days I'm just too busy and too tired, and I don't get around to it. But yeah, we have to speak up.
Yeah, it's so important to utilize our voice because our voice is our power. In your own words, Maria, what does woman empowerment means to you?
It's about fighting for equality. Female empowerment is about us fighting for equality. We're still not equal yet. We're not. We've come a long way. It was 100 years ago that women were given the right to vote. We still have a long way to go. We're still not
Mm.
paid the same. We have a lot of prejudices against us. We have lost rights. Female empowerment is about finding your voice and fighting for it, voting appropriately so that you can maintain your female empowerment. I mean, there's a lot of chatter out there about wanting to get rid of the ability for women to vote. You know that, right? Like there's
Absolutely. And also the abortion, the whole abortion rights.
yeah, women's rights. When you lose body autonomy, it's bad. It's really bad. And so we have female empowerment is finding our voice and speaking up. Don't be scared that you're afraid some pageant director isn't going to approve of what you have to say. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. So I hope that I can teach my granddaughter, she's only 3. I hope I can teach her to be strong and vocal and share her opinions with confidence and not, be a victim of the patriarchy. I mean, I am all about women's rights. Whenever elections come up, people will say, "Well, how are you going to vote?" And I always say, well, I'm a one issue voter. I've always been a one issue voter since I was 18 years old, and it's always about women's rights. So our empowerment is we're fighting right now. So let's be empowered and fight. I'm not done. I still got some fight in me.
In your advocacy, you have noticed the rights of women and LGBTQ plus individuals are at stake, especially when giving the current political climate that we're in right now. How can allies better support these movements? And what issues should we focus on first?
The number one thing is to vote. Do you know how many people did not vote this election? They
Hmm.
did not vote. They either got wrapped up in the misinformation. There's a lot of misinformation out there, especially social media, and disinformation. Cultural issues are huge, but here's what I do know, that if politicians keep us at each other's throats over cultural issues, whether it's which bathroom someone should use or somebody's decision about what they do with their body, if we're fighting each other over that, then we're not looking at the things politicians are supposed to be doing for us, whether it's clean water, clean air, equality. So they want to keep us at each other about social issues, right? So the number one thing an ally can do is to vote appropriately for the politicians who will fight for equality. I
Mm,
I can't be your ally if I'm voting for a politician that's going to take away our rights. How can I be your ally? That's
exactly.
Yeah, one plus one is not equaling two on that situation. That's the number one thing that we can do. And then the second thing is speak up. I know not everybody's on social media. I get it. I kind of actually envy those people who are on social media. I know about five of those people, and they're not on social. They've never been on social media, and I'm like, man, you must be the most productive person in the world because it sucks a lot of my time. So I get it. Not everybody wants to be on there, but speak up. Speak up. I'm constantly speaking up. And some people are like, why do you even bother? I'm like, because I'm about to put this person into the ground. I've become very good at how I use my words and fight for equality. And guess what? People don't come back at me. They don't. They know now. And I have an Instagram account if anybody wants to follow it, Snowflake Queen 21. And I'm going to be honest, if there may be a little bit of potty mouth over there. But I talk about things that are very important and what we can do as a society to make sure that we're still progressing. We don't want to regress. We want to keep moving in the right direction.
Absolutely. Moving forward is key. Now, Maria, if you could travel back in time, what will you tell your younger self?
Oh my gosh, I wish I could do this. I wish I could travel back in time. I would go to adolescent Maria because, I didn't have a lot of confidence being the new kid. And I would just grab her by the shoulders and say, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Keep believing in yourself. Don't try to fit in. And, I have a very supportive partner. My husband and I got married in 1987, and he loves me unconditionally. He is the one person in my life I can trust. If I tell my husband something, it doesn't go anywhere. And I would probably tell that adolescent Maria, you're going to find somebody who's your biggest cheerleader. And because of him, I learned how to believe in myself because he was believing in me more than I was believing in me at times.
Mm,
And I don't want to sound like, our relationship is perfect because no relationship is perfect. But I would tell that younger self, it's going to be okay. Keep believing in yourself. Get your education. Raise, a loving family. And you're going to be happy, healthy, wealthy, and wise.
I love that. That's such an empowering message right there. And, self doubt can be so paralyzing, especially when you're young and unsure. What was that turning point for you when you started embracing your abilities and trusting yourself more?
Probably when I became a mom. I was a young mom. Back in the day, we wouldn't have said I was a young mom, but nowadays, women get their education, they get their career, and then they have their children. And I was almost 21 when I gave birth to Brandon. And being a mom, it's not all about you anymore. And he made me a better person. My child made me a better person because I had to think of my child. My whole life was dedicated to making sure that he was going to be okay. So that was a huge pivotal point, right? And having a family. And then, I mean, I'll say winning Mrs. Virginia in 1999, it was life changing. I always say if I could take that feeling of when they called my name as the winner in 1999, if I could take that feeling and put it in a bottle and sell that stuff, girl, I'd be a billionaire. I'd be a billionaire because I can go back to that time right now in my head of what it felt like when they said my name. And all I could think was, oh my gosh, they chose me. They chose me. This is crazy. Like, I'm just a soccer mom. I was like a little soccer coach driving a minivan, and they chose me. And so that was a very, very pivotal point. And then I think getting my bachelor's degree, and I graduated number 2 in my class, raising a family, working a full-time job, and that proved to me that I could do anything if I put my mind to it.
Wow, what a beautiful affirmation. Now, what is your greatest hope for the future of the LGBTQ plus community, and how do you envision your role contributing to that vision?
My biggest role would be in educating people in how our legislation works. A lot of people don't understand how laws get passed. So, going back to the first part of your question, I am hoping that all this nonsense that's about to come down the pike just goes away in a few years and we don't have the aftermath to deal with for that much longer, and we get the right people in who believe in equality, and they get rid of this crazy religious indoctrination of thinking that we're supposed to be, you know, this white Christian nationalist country. And so I'm hoping that we don't have to deal with that, but it's going to be a rocky ride for the next 4 years. But my biggest form of allyship is just teaching people again, you got to vote. You got to vote. You can go out and march all you want. But if you aren't voting, because a lot of people don't vote, they say that they're active or they're allies or they're advocates. But if you aren't voting, you're not getting anything done. So teaching people how to do that, encouraging people how to register to vote, and make sure they vote in all elections. All elections. You can't just be voting for the president. Your governor is going to be passing a lot of laws that could be impacting you. Look what's happened having women's rights pushed down to the states. Teaching people to vote for city council. Your city council is going to impact what you are living with on a day-to-day basis. So that's the number one way that I can teach people how to be allies. Because if we lose our rights, we're done. And it's happening. It's happening right now. And then just encouraging people that if they need someone to talk to, I'm here for you. If you need to come knock on my door at midnight because you have nowhere to go, come on over.
Now, what would you say to parents struggling to accept or better understand their LGBTQ and plus children? What message resonate most with them?
Again, the love of your child should supersede everything. The love for your child should be your top priority. That's it. That's it. Your love should not be conditional. If your love is conditional, you're a terrible, terrible parent.
Wow. Now, your story is, obviously both inspiring and a call to empathy. What's one thing you hope parents take away from your experience, and those parents that are listening to us and watching?
I hope that they look at me and say, maybe in their minds they think I'm brave. I don't think I'm brave at all. But maybe they look at me and say, if she has the courage to not only accept her son, which again has never been a question with me at all, but if she has the courage to be public and vocal, then that's encouraging me that everything's going to be okay. Because in the end, everything's going to be okay, right? Life is temporary. I'm a yoga teacher, so I have a very unique way of looking at how the universe unfolds. I have a saying, the universe unfolds exactly as it's supposed to. And once you realize that is the situation. The universe is going to unfold whether I'm here or you're here. It's going to happen, but it's unfolding the way it's supposed to. And once you realize that, you kind of you let that power go, right? You let your ego and your power go. So I would tell these parents that everything is temporary as far as life, but your love should not be conditional, and that you need to protect your child, especially if it's a child under 18. Oh my goodness.
Mm,
That's neglect if you're turning your back on your child. In my opinion, that's neglect. You're supposed to be their provider and their caretaker. So just deep breaths. Encourage your child to be the best version of themselves they can be. Because in the end, it's about being a good person. It doesn't matter what's happening here, right? This external,
absolutely.
yeah, it's all about what's inside of us and trying to make the world a better place. So just teaching people unconditional love.
Now, what would you say to that individual who's on the fence of, who's in the closet and is in the fence of wanting to come out into the world and living authentically in their own skin? What advice would you give to that person?
Gosh, I don't know if that's a place for me. I don't think that's a place for me. I mean, I don't think someone would come to me with that, but I guess if they did, I would tell them that if they couldn't find love and support, that if they feel like the people have turned their backs on them who are supposed to protect them, that there are communities out there. My son found a community when he went to Virginia Tech. He found like-minded people. I would encourage them, but they could always come to me if they needed to. Depends on what their relationship would be, with me, with this person. And that they have to live their lives authentically. It's too difficult to live a lie. It's too difficult. And we've seen it. We've seen it with people, right? They did what they thought they had to do because society told them. And then they finally said, I can't do it anymore. And I think about all those years that they lost, that they could have lived their lives authentically. So I would just encourage somebody to find their community to help support them, because that's going to be important, right? Find friends and social support so that you're not isolated.
Yeah, it's a little bit easier now because we have so many groups and so many centers that individuals can go and, get those resources and, have someone to talk to. That's a very strong message right there. Now, when you're no longer here, Maria, how do you wish to be remembered? Like, what legacy do you hope to leave behind?
Well, I'm going to leave a legacy because I have children and grandchildren. And so my legacy, hopefully, is that we should all try to be kinder. And I have to work on that all the time because I tend to get upset and angry about the things I'm seeing that are happening. And I have to take deep breaths. And I think a lot of us have struggled who don't understand why certain people voted a certain way. And it's not Democrat versus Republican, but having people in our lives who say they support the LGBTQ community, and yet they're not voting to support the LGBTQ community. And you got to take a lot of deep breaths so you don't punch somebody. So I would say, my legacy, I hope, is just try to be kinder. Try to be kinder. Like, give somebody a hug if they need that hug. And my grandchildren are the most loving little babies. When they see me, they run into my arms and we hug each other, and I just love on them so much. So I hope that they're going to keep being like that when they're adults.
Practice love and not hate.
That's
That
right.
is the key takeaway from here. Now, what do you hope people take away from hearing your story today?
Well, I want them to look at me and get rid of all of their notions they had about me when they first saw me in this interview. Preconceived notions. Maybe they had their prejudices. I've got like the little Karen Bob and a blonde, older white lady, and you can have a lot of assumptions about that, right? We assume a lot about people when we look at them. We say, oh, well, that person must be a certain way because of the way they look. I want people to look at me and go, okay, there are people that look like her that are allies, that believe that we should all be kind to each other, and that I'm not indoctrinated in any kind of belief because of religion or some thing I was taught when I was a child. So I want people to look at me and realize there are kind people out there, and that we're just all trying to work towards a better world. And doggone it, if it doesn't come down to, I just want world peace.
I love that. I love that. Now, Maria, we are reaching towards the end, and we have reached my favorite segment of the show where I get to ask you some rapid questions, and you have to answer the first thing that comes to mind. Are you
Oh,
ready?
oh, I think so. I'm kind of scared, but okay, let's go.
What's your favorite go to, coffee or tea?
Coffee.
If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
In Richmond, Virginia. I love my city.
What's the last show you binged watched?
I can't remember. I'll just go with Game of Thrones. It was one of my favorite shows.
Describe yourself in 3 words.
Crazy, energetic, happy.
What's your dream vacation spot?
I want to go to Australia. I haven't been there yet.
That's a good one. What's a book you have read that changed your perspective?
Ooh, The Millionaire Next Door.
What's your guilty pleasure snack?
Oh, cheese rice cakes.
If you had to sing karaoke, what song will you pick?
It's probably going to be a Queen song, probably, but you do not want me to sing karaoke.
What's one thing on your bucket list you have yet to do?
Ooh, go to Japan. And we're going to go in the fall, next fall.
And finally, if you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be and why?
Michelle Obama. I would even have dinner with Obama himself. But yeah, the Obamas.
Maria, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. Your story is truly inspiring and has touched so many of our listeners. The strength and the honesty you share remind us all of the power of staying true to ourselves. And we're so grateful for your support of the LGBTQ plus community and for being such a wonderful ally. Your kindness and encouragement mean the world to so many. Thank you for sharing your journey with us and for making such a positive impact. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor for me as well.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Out of the Closet into the World. Remember, living your truth is a journey. And it's okay to take one step at a time. Whether you are out or still figuring things out or standing in solidarity as an ally, know that your voice matters and your story is unique and powerful. Together, we are building a world where love, acceptance, and authenticity are celebrated. Keep embracing who you are. Keep supporting those around you. And most importantly, keep shining your light. Until next time, step out of the closet and into the world because your truth deserves to be seen, heard, and celebrated. Stay strong, stay proud, and continue to stay you. This is Ada Arancibia. Until next time. Thank you so much for watching and listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, comment, and share it with your friends and family. Don't forget to follow me on social media to stay updated and join this movement. I would love to hear your thoughts, so comment below. With gratitude, Ada.